It's been 1 year since Putin sent his army to occupy Ukraine. Let's take a look at some horrifying numbers that reveal the evil side of this war. Refugees from Ukraine across Europe. The UN's refugee agency says that right now, there are about 8 million people who had to leave their homes in Ukraine. Some of them went to other countries in Europe and some are still inside Ukraine. In Ukraine, almost 1/3 of the people have been forced to leave their homes. Most of these people are women and children because the men who are old enough to be soldiers have been asked to stay and fight in Ukraine. The countries that have taken in the most refugees are Poland and Germany, with each country receiving more than 1 million refugees. The Czech Republic comes next with almost 440,000 refugees. The US, UK, France, Turkey, Italy, and Spain have taken in between 100,000 and 300,000 refugees each. Out of the 8 million refugees from Ukraine, more than 2 million have gone to Russia. Some of them chose to go there and then try to reach the European Union. But there are also worrying reports of Ukrainians being forced to go to Russia against their will. A few refugees have gone back to Ukraine, but it's not clear how long they'll stay there. 7,000 Ukrainian civilians have been killed. For regular people, it's hard to know exactly how many civilians have been affected. According to the United Nations, they have confirmed 7,110 civilian deaths, including 438 children, and 11,547 injuries during Russia's invasion of Ukraine as of January 30th, 2023. But the actual numbers could be higher, since the UN only counts deaths once they can confirm the person's identity. Ukrainian officials believe the number of civilians killed is closer to 40,000. Thousands of African students faced racism. Before the war in Ukraine, almost 16,000 African students constituted about 20% of the international student population. During the attempts to flee the country with other citizens, the hashtag #Africans in Ukraine gained popularity on social media. People of color used the hashtag to share their encounters with racism while trying to leave. Dr. Jessica Orakpo, facing discrimination, had to walk for 12 hours to reach a bus, but was denied boarding due to being black and African, forcing her to walk another 8 hours to cross the border. Sexual violence is being used as a weapon of war. During war, women's bodies often become the center of the conflict. Rape and sexual abuse are not accidental results of war. They are used intentionally as a military strategy. The armed forces of Russia have been accused by the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on Ukraine of employing these brutal tactics. Since Putin's invasion of Ukraine, there have been reports of terrible atrocities. Women have been gang raped, men have been castrated, children have been sexually abused, and civilians have been forced to walk naked in public. The UN has documented these horrifying events. However, it is believed that the full extent of the human rights violations and war crimes against the Ukrainian people may only become known many years after the war ends. Education has been disrupted for more than 5 million children. According to UNICEF, the war has disrupted education for more than 5 million children. Afshan Khan, who works for UNICEF in Europe and Central Asia, says that schools and early childhood education are very important for children. They give kids a structured and safe environment. If children miss out on learning, it could affect them for their whole lives. She also says that we can't just ignore children's education and put it off for later. Doing that would risk the future of an entire generation. Outside of Ukraine, things are also concerning. About 2/3 of Ukrainian refugee children are not going to school in their host countries. This is because there aren't enough spaces in schools, and when the crisis started, many refugee families chose online learning, hoping they could go back to Ukraine soon. 345 million people are being pushed towards starvation. Before the war, Ukraine and Russia were big producers and exporters of food. But since the conflict started, they stopped exporting much food, which has affected the whole world. Food prices have gone up and there's not enough food stored for emergencies. In September 2022, the head of the United Nations, UN, Food Organization, warned that the world is facing a very serious crisis. Around 345 million people could soon suffer from starvation, and 70 million of them are directly affected by the war in Ukraine. The UN World Food Programme's Executive Director, David Beasley, described the situation as a huge wave of hunger turning into an even bigger tsunami of hunger. Well, that's it for today. If you enjoyed watching this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.